Welcome to Act Zero. Today we will be looking at the 1997 science fiction cult classic Gattaca. It was written and directed by Andrew Niccol, who is criminally underrated by the way. He also wrote The Truman Show, Lord of War, Sim 1, In Time and The Terminal. Alright, let's jump right in and analyze how Gattaca incorporates Act Zero into its structure. Gattaca has an interesting structure in the first act. It actually starts with a teaser from Act 2 with the murder mystery of the mission director. Then it loops back to the very beginning, back to Act 0. In the previous ordinary world, Vincent's mother and father are happy to conceive naturally and give a natural birth to Vincent. Take note of the close relationships around the protagonist because the emotional wound will forever change the dynamic between all characters and creates a constant source of conflict going forward. After Vincent is born, he is diagnosed with a heart problem and a short life expectancy.
Heart disorder, 99% probability, early fatal potential, life expectancy, 30.2 years.
Notice the immediate change in attitude in Vincent's father.
The name for the certificate?
Anton?
No, Vincent Anton.
There are two types of emotional wounds: a single devastating event or repeating events. In Vincent's case, he receives repeated discrimination for his genetic defect. What is the lie that Vincent tells himself? Vincent is conditioned to see himself as flawed.
Vincent?
From an early age, I came to think of myself as others thought of me.
Vincent?
Chronically ill. Every skinned knee and runny nose was treated as if it were life-threatening.
What is Vincent's fear? He is afraid of people finding out about his heart defect and the discrimination that follows. And because of this fear, Vincent develops emotional shields to protect himself. One of Vincent's emotional shields is avoidance. He develops a habit of removing any evidence of his genetic inferiority. Another habit he develops is overcompensation. As we can see in the game of chicken, he pushes himself to the limit to prove that he's not as weak. Another major emotional shield is Vincent's escapism. He wants to travel out of space as a means to leave Earth.
Maybe it was a love of the planets. Maybe it was just my growing dislike for this one. But for as long as I can remember, I have dreamed of going into space.
As Vincent grows into his teens, he continues to aspire to travel into space, while facing mounting discrimination from his family and society.
You have to be realistic. With a heart condition like yours.
Mom, there's a chance there's nothing even wrong with my heart. 1 chance in 100. Well, I'll take it, all right?
The trouble is they won't.
Vincent has two unmet needs. The first one is individual respect. He wants to be judged and respected on his abilities and not by his genetic makeup. The second unmet need is self-actualization. Vincent has a strong desire to reach his full potential. After Vincent beats Anton in the game of chicken for the first time, he realizes that there is a possibility he may not be as weak as they say, so he decides to pursue his dream.
It was the one moment in our lives that my brother was not as strong as he believed, and I was not as weak. It was the moment that made everything else possible.
Vincent refuses to be judged by society's new genetic standard, so he finds a loophole around the system using a borrowed ladder.
No matter how much I trained or how much I studied, the best test score in the world wasn't going to matter unless I had the blood test to go with it. I made up my mind to resort to more extreme measures. The man who showed up at my doorstep didn't exactly advertise in the yellow pages.
Gattaca sets one of the greatest examples of how themes should be explored within a story. First, Andrew Niccol gives Vincent an emotional wound that is universal: discrimination. Regardless of your race, gender, physical appearance, or financial situation, everyone can relate to discrimination in one form or another. To expand on the theme of genetic discrimination, Niccol uses his secondary characters to further explore the subject. Here is a common list of character archetypes. How do you create secondary characters? The first and easiest secondary character to design is the villain, or the shadow, as he is usually the direct opposite of the protagonist. Fully explore the theme of a story. Always create characters with different degrees of belief and point of views. The mentor teaches and helps Vincent go through the process of changing his profile to match Jerome, to fit in genetically within the DNA culture at Gattaca. Jerome is genetically perfect, but failed to live up to expectations. Vincent learns that Jerome's paralysis is self-inflicted. After placing silver in the Olympics, Jerome threw himself in front of a car. He is an alcoholic who has to live with consequences of his actions, while also giving up his identity. Jerome maintains that he was designed to be the best, yet still wasn't, and suffers under the burden of perfection. At first, he is bitter and jaded, and doesn't believe Vincent can achieve their goals. He plays the archetype of a rival that turns into an ally, sometimes referred to as a frenemy. Irene is Vincent's love interest. Although valid, Irene has an unacceptable high risk of heart failure that excludes her from the journey to Titan. Her close interest in Vincent threatens to reveal his true identity. Vincent's father and mother both wanted a natural birth for their first son, but as it didn't turn out all they hoped for, they turned to genetic engineering for the next son. Their favoritism for his younger brother Anton is a constant source of pain for Vincent. The detective investigating the mission director's death is clearly older, wiser and more experienced, but has to answer to someone younger and genetically superior in Anton. The detective gets closer and closer in tracking down Vincent, who is the main suspect in the murder case. The Gattaca director suspects Vincent is not who he says he is. Whether he knows or doesn't know about Vincent's true identity remains a mystery even after the movie is over. Under heavy suspicion from Detective Hugo, the director conveniently points out that his genetics determines he does not have a violent disposition. Going against his natural inclination to commit a crime proves genetics doesn't always guarantee the right results. The DNA tester provides many obstacles that Vincent must pass, several times catching him off guard. Dr. Lamar has a son born with genetic defects. This causes him to sympathize with Vincent's plight. He does not call out the identity fraud despite knowing the truth for some time. As you can see, there is a good balance between natural born and genetically modified characters. To the left, you can see allies who are there to help, and to the right are characters that are there to hinder. Also remember that not all characters will permanently stay in their role. They can shapeshift from good to bad or vice versa. For example, the DNA tester is a force of antagonism for the most part of Vincent's journey, until it is revealed in the end that he had been secretly helping all along. The call to adventure happens when Vincent beats his genetically superior brother in their favourite game of chicken. This makes the possibility of reaching his dream of going into space a reality. He refuses to take part in the Gattaca's DNA screening process because he knows he will fail. He meets the identity seller, German, and they go through the process of changing his profile to match Jerome. He overcomes the threshold guardian, Dr. Lamar, and gets accepted into Gattaca.
Well, what about the interview?
That was it.
Notice the slight character change that has happened from the beginning to the end of Act 1. It goes from discrimination to acceptance, but under false pretenses. Moving on to Act 2, we see Vincent training with the genetic elite at Gattaca, while Jerome prepares body matter for Vincent's constant tests. The murder of the mission director brings the scrutiny of detectives, who search all over his workplace with hoovers for DNA evidence. Vincent's eyelash is found, and he becomes the prime suspect for the murder case. Irene, the love interest, suspects Vincent had something to do with the murder.
Didn't the director threaten to cancel your mission more than once, Jerome?
Yes, he did.
Somebody did you a favor.
The Gattaca director also suspects Vincent is not who he is.
Is this the approach path that we discussed?
Absolutely, Director.
Quite right. Quite right.
All these suspicions makes Vincent paranoid that they will discover his true identity and he has a meltdown.
They'll recognize me.
They won't recognize you.
They'll recognize me!
I don't recognize you.
Remember, the hero can also be their own threshold guardian when something internal is holding them back. Jerome makes Vincent understand that they don't see him anymore. just Jerome's elite profile. Note the moderate character change. Vincent goes from trying to blend in to an accepted member of the elite. Moving on to Act 2B, we see Vincent going on multiple dates with Irene. This is another form of an elite showing more acceptance for Vincent. As Vincent falls for Irene, she helps remove his escapism emotional shield. He no longer wants to leave Earth, but his need to reach his full potential pushes him forward.
It's funny. You work so hard, you do everything you can to get away from the place. And when you finally get your chance to leave, you find a reason to stay.
A surprise bust by the detectives at the dinner event catches Vincent off guard. He knocks out an officer to escape. This reveals his true identity to Irene and his detective brother Anton. Anton hunts Vincent down to Jerome's residence with the aid of Irene. Jerome and Irene is forced to play along to help cover for Vincent. This is the closest Vincent has come to being caught. Irene discovers about the true extent of his deception and runs out on him. She helps him come to a realization about himself, about his heart condition, and removes the lie he believed in.
They have got you looking so hard for any flaw that after a while, that's all that you see.
The main reason for the major setback is because Vincent still hasn't removed his biggest emotional shield of hiding his true genetic identity. Moving on to Act 3, we see Vincent going back to Gattaca to confront Anton, because despite the murder case being solved, he knows Anton won't stop trying to expose his true identity. In the final game of chicken with his brother, Vincent proves to him that once and for all that he is the superior one, by not saving anything for the swim back.
You want to know how I did it? This is how I did it, Anton. I never saved anything for the swim back.
This event also removes his emotional shield of overcompensation, knowing he doesn't need to try so hard to cover his shortcomings anymore. In an attempt to reconcile with Irene, Vincent presents his real DNA hair to her. She drops it and embraces his true flawed self. Before Vincent leaves for Titan, Jerome shows Vincent how much he respects him and his dream. Caught out by a final DNA test, Vincent presents his true self, content in the knowledge that he is just as good as the other genetic elites going on the mission. Instead of stopping him, the geneticist confesses his knowledge of Vincent's identity fraud and reveals his own son having similar genetic flaws. This removes his last and final emotional shield of removing DNA evidence. With the acceptance from Dr. Lamar, Irene, Jerome, and presumably from Anton, since he doesn't get arrested for fraud, Vincent approaches the shuttle with a confident stride. He no longer fears discrimination, knowing what he can achieve.